The team that should have made a move but didn't.
I go first. This is easy. This is easy for me. And I was shocked when I saw this team making a trade but not bringing in somebody. The Green Bay Packers. Sorry. Look, I know you didn't play well against the Detroit Lions in the elements, which is the most anti-Packer thing ever. You go to Lambeau Field and the other team, a dome team, is more comfortable in the elements than you are. And on top of that, you looked a little silly in those throwback uniforms with the gold. That didn't work. But you're not that far away. You're still in a competitive division with Minnesota and Detroit. I just think the Packers maybe took it too far with I know they're a draft and develop team. They're a young team. They only have a couple of guys over 30 years old. Why not go out and be in the mix for some of these players that we talked about? It's still an opportunity, even though they haven't hit their peak, and it was a disappointing game against Detroit. I thought Green Bay missed a big opportunity to be very active at the deadline.
They are so committed to draft and develop that it's probably got to take a lot for them to trade for someone and give up draft capital in future years to make it happen. And they'd rather see what they can do with what they have, keep their draft picks, because it's part of a year in and year out churn. We need those draft picks to lay the foundation for our future team. We talked about this earlier, but it's worth mentioning. The Chiefs, they were interested in cornerback help, and I think they took the Steelers-Ravens. I'm not going to pay a lot for that muffler. That takes you back. Some of you might remember that line. Yeah. I'm not going to pay a lot for that muffler. But here's the thing. You're one muffler away, potentially, from two kinds of greatness. This dawned on me last night. Another thing I was doing while I was killing time and multitasking. The Chiefs are trying to climb the mountain for the third straight year. Nobody's done it in the Super Bowl era. I always get angry emails from old school Packers fans who want to remind me that they won 3 straight championships in the 60s. Okay, fine, but it wasn't the Super Bowl. No one's won 3 Super Bowls in a row. That's all we care about at this point. Chiefs are in a position to do that. And, Michael, when Devin McCourty and I were talking about this yesterday in the aftermath of the latest win by the Kansas City Chiefs that moves them to 8-0, we got to start talking about whether or not they're going to go 17-0. Because they are playing every one of these regular season games like every playoff game they've played. They have shed the mindset of regular season doesn't matter, we'll kick it in the postseason, to we're treating every week like it's the postseason. We're treating every week like we have to find a way to win, and they keep finding a way to win. Yeah, they haven't blown anyone out, but they keep winning. And that in and of itself builds on itself. The opponents feel it coming. You feel it coming. It's inevitable. Baker Mayfield's reaction when they lost the coin toss in overtime, it's inevitable. We know how this movie ends. It's the same ending every week. You add Marshawn Lattimore to that mix, yeah, you're going to give up a little something in the future, but we're chasing 2 forms of greatness. We have a chance to do the unprecedented in 2 different ways. And I don't know how much of a point of pride it would be to go 20-0, but they're 8-0, and they've won 14 in a row already dating back to Christmas of last year. Why wouldn't you throw in for the possibility of continuing this winning streak and try to do the unprecedented 3 straight Super Bowls? So that's what disappointed me about the Chiefs. I thought they'd get a corner somewhere, whether it was Lattimore, White, somewhere, somehow, I thought they'd get a corner.
And I'll add another layer that they could be fighting for. So you got the 3-peat, you got an undefeated season, and if an undefeated season happens, you also set an NFL record because the Patriots won 21 straight games. The Chiefs have won 14 straight. And you got to start looking at that, even if they don't go undefeated, you got to start looking at this 21-game streak that the Patriots had from 2003 and 2004. Kansas City has Denver at home. I think most people, America is going to say, yes, Kansas City wins that game, even though Denver's got a good defense. They go to Buffalo after that. And they're not, that's the challenge. That's probably the biggest challenge to their streak, to their undefeated streak and the potential historic win streak. But after Buffalo, there are not a lot of games where you look at Kansas City and say, oh, that's going to be tough. Maybe the Chargers, because, you know, you respect Jim Harbaugh and the defenses that he puts together and the toughness of his team. So that's another element that they could be fighting for. Undefeated season, historic NFL record winning streak, and three-peat for the Chiefs. But all that being said, I disagree with you, because I think they've got enough where if they didn't go out and get a corner, it's not going to prevent them. I don't think if they don't get a three-peat, we won't say somebody took advantage of the Chiefs and they didn't have that other corner alongside McDuffie, and that really got them. You know, whoever beats them, it's just going to have to be somebody who says, all right, look, we got the ball last, and we're just going to melt this thing, and we have the ability to put up 35 in a playoff game. And we can go into Kansas City and stare at them and not lose the blink. We won't blink. It's going to be something like that. It's going to be something outrageous. It won't be, let's take advantage of that weakness on the Kansas City Chiefs. I don't think it's going to happen.
I think you're right. I think other than Joe Burrow, the only team and the only quarterback that can take down Mahomes is somebody who can get up by, and I want to say multiple scores, but we've seen them down multiple scores in 3 Super Bowls in the second half. Maybe you got to get up 3 scores against the Chiefs to have a chance to hold on. Good luck getting up 3 scores against the Chiefs. And one last point on that. When you mentioned the 21 straight wins by the Patriots, you know, Andy Reid is closing in on doing some stuff Bill Belichick never did, all the while chipping away at the lead that Belichick has in the all-time wins list. Don't look now, but Reid might catch him. Mm-hmm. Now, you know, even if he comes back next year, Reid still might catch him, because even if Bill comes back, he doesn't have Patrick Mahomes, and Andy Reid does. All right, well, let's get to one more fill in the blank, since Gary took the time to come up with 4 of them. We only got to 1 because I talked too much. How about biggest loser of NFL trade season? Biggest loser.
The biggest loser of NFL trade season, we just saw him. He was just talking. His team, Aaron Rodgers and the Jets. They made a move. They made a couple of moves. Not that it was a trade, but they brought in Hassan Reddick. They traded for Devontae Adams. They lost a couple of games after bringing in Devontae Adams. They don't have any moves to make either way. I don't think the Jets couldn't have been in sell mode if they wanted to. We know they didn't want to, because that'd be a bad look for Woody Johnson. So they couldn't be in sell mode. They couldn't be in buy mode. There's nothing else to buy. So they're just there with a bunch of overpriced products, and they're stuck with them. And they're not going anywhere fast. So I think they're the biggest losers, because they went all in this year, and already, I can say in November, not going to happen for the Jets.
I've hinted at this a few times in the run-up to the trade deadline, and I probably mentioned it earlier in the show, but it's already been an hour, and I can't recall what I said back then. The Browns, because, and as I mentioned, I do remember saying this, they're the ones who proposed this delay from the Tuesday after Week 8 to the Tuesday after Week 9. The Browns need to move veteran contracts for guys who aren't going to be there as part of the resurrection post-Deshaun Watson contract. And I'm stunned they didn't move more guys, because they need draft pick capital, young, cheap talent to offset $72 million next year cap charge for Watson, $72 million cap charge the following year for Watson, $30 million on the back end after he's no longer on the team. And if they cut him at some point before that, you get acceleration of those numbers. They're in a disaster from a cap standpoint. I thought David Njoku, and look, I heard that he was available. Apparently they didn't get enough for him, or they would have done it. Greg Newsome, that name came up. But basically anyone except Myles Garrett. You should have been in play, and they should have done some of these deals to clear out veterans, to clear up cap space, and to get draft picks, because you're going to need them. Whatever you do with Deshaun Watson, you're going to need those draft picks.
But, Mike, wouldn't that be an admission? Wouldn't that be an admission that clearly they're not willing to say? They can't say it. It's so obvious. We all see it. Jameis Winston took over for Deshaun Watson. It didn't work out last week. But that first week, you could feel the energy. You could feel that there was something different about the Browns. But Kevin Stefanski, every week you'd ask, hey, you're going to make a move with Deshaun Watson. No, Deshaun gives us the best chance to win. No, he doesn't. You and Andrew Berry thought when you traded for Deshaun Watson that not only would he give you the best chance of winning, he'd give you your first Super Bowl appearance in franchise history. You thought that. And now you know that's not the case, but you won't say it. If you go at the deadline and you move on from Njoku and you move on from anybody else, you wouldn't move on from Nick Chubb. I don't think there's a market for him, and he's just working his way back. But like anybody else on the roster, the teams would say, oh, I'll take him. Aren't you admitting that the whole thing failed?
It's a great point.
We know.
Great point.
We know it
Everybody
did.
knows.
It failed.
Everybody knows.
Except him. It didn't work.
It's the guy the Browns are the guy who came out of the bathroom with toilet paper on his shoe, and everyone knows it, and he knows it. But he refuses to remove the toilet paper from his shoe because he doesn't want to admit that somehow he has toilet paper on his shoe. That's who the Browns are right now.
And he's the guy he could be bursting, but he'll come into your house. He will not use the bathroom in your house. He won't do it. He won't do it because I don't want you to know.
You know what we just did there, Michael? We did the weave. Hi, it's Mike Florio. Thanks for watching PFT on YouTube. Hit subscribe for the latest news and analysis from Pro Football Talk.